You know how when something happens, it just feels obvious that that thing is what made you feel how you feel? Like when some friends go to lunch and you weren't invited, or your mother in law criticizes your housekeeping. How about when your teenager slams their door again, or your bank account is in the negative, and you think, of course I'm angry, of course I'm hurt, of course I'm anxious. It feels like the situation caused the emotion. But what if that's not actually what's happening? What if the situation itself isn't what creates how you feel? What if it's the meaning your brain adds to it? Most of us don't even realize that's what's going on. We think our thoughts are just facts. We think we're just describing reality. She was disrespectful. I'm terrible at managing money. They must not like me anymore. But those aren't facts. They're sentences our brain offered about the facts. And learning the difference between what's actually happening and what you're thinking about what happened is where peace begins. That's what we're going to talk about today, a simple tool called the model that helps you see the difference clearly so you can understand why you feel the way you do and shift it when you want to. Welcome to Feel Better, Live Better. I'm your host, Stephanie Bridges, and each week we talk about simple ways to fuel your body, free your mind, and create the energy and confidence you need to live well. Let's get started. So let's start with what the model actually is. It's a simple way of looking at how your mind works. Kind of like holding up a mirror to your thoughts so you can finally see what's creating your emotions and your actions and the results that you keep getting. There are 5 parts: the circumstance, thought, feeling, action, and the result. So the circumstances are facts, the things everyone would agree on, the number on the scale, other people's choices, the weather, the number in your bank account, the words a person says. Those are all circumstances. And they're neutral until your brain adds meaning. And you might be thinking, no way is every circumstance neutral. What about somebody dying? Before you knew that person died, you didn't have a feeling about it because you didn't know. The moment you learned about it, you had a thought. Something like, this isn't fair, or I'm so sad I'll never see them again. And that thought is what created an emotion, not the fact itself. What it meant to you is what caused the feeling. And that meaning comes from your thoughts. Thoughts are sentences your brain offers about what's happening. They're the stories you tell yourself. Things like, she shouldn't have said that. They're so mean. This always happens, or I'll never figure it out. We all have tens of thousands of thoughts every day, most of which run in the background, and they shape how we feel without us even realizing it. If there are adjectives, opinions, or judgments, it's not a fact, it's a thought. She said these exact words. That's a fact. She was rude is a thought because not everybody has the same idea of what rude is. And once you can tell the difference, you start to see how much of your emotional life is created by what's happening inside you and not what's happening around you. So every thought creates a feeling, and that's the next part of the model. Feelings are emotions that show up in your body. One-word emotions like frustrated, calm, worried, grateful, hurt, hopeful. They're not good or bad, they're just vibrations that come from your thoughts. And those feelings then drive your actions. When you feel anxious, maybe you bite your nails or grab some chocolate or scroll on your phone. When you feel angry, you might snap at people or drive really aggressively or send an email that you later regret. And when you feel happy, you smile and you talk to people and maybe reach out and make plans. When you feel sad, you might withdraw or get quiet. And when you feel overwhelmed, you might shut down or distract yourself. Every emotion fuels a different kind of energy, and that energy drives your actions. And your actions always lead to your results. Your results are the outcomes of what you do, and they almost always reinforce that original thought that you started with. If you think, no one listens to me, you might withdraw, and the result, people listen even less. But if you think, I can figure this out, then you try again, and you prove yourself right. And that's how the model works. So we have circumstance, thought, feeling, action, and result. Now you might be thinking, okay, that makes sense in theory, but how do I actually use it? Well, the first step is just to simply notice it. Start by catching yourself when you start blaming other people or the things that happen in your life, and ask, what am I thinking? And what am I making this mean? You don't have to change it, not yet, just look at it. So let me walk you through a few examples. So say you text a friend and they don't text back. So the circumstance is your friend hasn't replied in 2 days. The thought might be, she's ignoring me. And then you might feel hurt. And then maybe your actions are you replay the last conversation you had with her, trying to figure out what you said wrong. Or maybe you stop reaching out. And the result is you feel disconnected, which reinforces the thought, she's ignoring me because now you're ignoring her. Now, the same circumstance, your friend still hasn't replied, but a different thought could be, she's probably busy. And then you feel calm. And then your action might be, you move on with your day. And the result could be peace and no drama created. And you get busy doing your life. Nothing changed outside of you, just the thought changed. Or how about the circumstance where your teenager slams the door? Okay, the thought is, they don't respect me. And you feel angry. And then your actions might be yelling, lecturing, maybe grounding them, or giving them the silent treatment. And the result is more distance between you and more frustration, and you don't respect them. But if we look at it a different way, the same circumstance, the door slams, a different thought, they're overwhelmed and need some space right now. And then your feeling might be compassion. And your actions might be, you give them a few minutes and then later on you calmly talk about what happened. And the result would be connection and influence instead of conflict. So do you see how the same moment can go two completely different ways, just based on the meaning that your brain gives it? And a third example would be, okay, let's look at that bank account. So the circumstance was the bank account is in the negative. A thought might be, I'm terrible with money. And then you feel ashamed. And then you avoid checking your account. You don't want to stick to a budget. Maybe you spend more money just to feel better. And then the result is that the pattern continues and you have more evidence for the thought, I'm terrible with money. So now, what if the thought were, okay, this is information and I can learn from it? Then your feeling might be curiosity. And your actions could be you look at what happened, maybe you plan differently, or maybe you ask for help in learning how to take care of your money better. And then the result would be growth and progress. And this is what the model helps you see, not so you can judge yourself, but so you can understand yourself. When you write it out, you can see even more clearly. So here's what I want you to practice. Pick one small situation that's been bothering you. Write out the facts. I only want the facts, no adjectives, no opinions, just exact words someone said in quotation marks. Exactly what happened without your interpretation of it. Okay, write the first thought that comes up about it. I know we have lots of thoughts about things, and you can write out a bunch, but then I just want you to pick one to focus on first. And I want you to name the feeling that thought creates. Just a one-word feeling. And then ask, what do I do or don't do when I feel this way? And then look at the result that those actions create for you. That is your automatic model, the one that your brain runs by default. And now let's create an intentional model. So I want you to ask yourself, what else could I think that feels a little more true, but also more helpful? You're not trying to force positive thinking. You are just choosing something believable that moves you toward calm or curiosity or peace. It could be as small as, I don't love this, but I can handle it. Or, this isn't the end of the story. That one small shift changes that emotional charge. And when the feeling changes, the actions change, and so does your result. Now, I want to be sure that you don't use the model to judge yourself. I want you to use it to understand what's happening in your brain so you can get curious about it. Because when you can see it, you can start working with your brain instead of against it. The goal isn't to never feel negative emotion. It's to stop feeling powerless when it shows up. Once you see how the pieces fit together, the circumstance, thought, feeling, action, and result, you realize you have more control than you thought. Not over the world, but over your experience of it. And the more you practice this, the more you're going to start catching yourself before your emotions start spiraling. You'll notice when your brain jumps straight into story mode. They don't care. I always mess up. This shouldn't be happening. And instead of believing every thought your brain offers, now you can start questioning it. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. The circumstance didn't change. The room is still the room, but now you can actually see what's there. That's what awareness does. It gives you space to respond instead of react. When you can look at what's going on in your mind without judgment, you start seeing patterns and you see which thoughts create the feelings that are keeping you stuck and which ones help you move forward. And over time, it stops feeling like the world is happening to you and starts to feel like you are part of the process again. It doesn't mean you'll never feel angry, sad, or anxious. You absolutely will, because we are human, right? It just means you'll know what to do with those emotions when they come up. You'll know how to say, oh, that's just my brain offering a thought. And instead of spiraling, you just breathe, you stay curious, and decide how you actually want to respond. That's emotional responsibility. Not blame, not guilt, just ownership. Okay, so let's move into our subconscious release for this week. If you've never done this with me before, it's super easy. So I will say deep breath in, and while you're holding your breath, I will say this statement. You repeat it silently in your mind, and then you breathe out. And that's all there is to it. Every week we do 3 different beliefs. So, okay, let's get going with this. Deep breath in. I release all hopelessness with my feelings depend on what other people do. Deep breath in. I release all resentment with my feelings depend on what other people do. Deep breath in. I release all insecurity with my feelings depend on what other people do. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to certainty with my feelings depend on what other people do. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to security with my feelings depend on what other people do. Deep breath in and out. Deep breath in. I release all confusion with my thoughts are just the truth. Deep breath in. I release all overwhelm with my thoughts are just the truth. Deep breath in. I release all rigidness with my thoughts are just the truth. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to receiving with my thoughts are just the truth. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to infinite potential with my thoughts are just the truth. Deep breath in and out. Deep breath in. I release all fear with I need everything to go right before I can relax. Deep breath in. I release all pressure with I need everything to go right before I can relax. Deep breath in. I release all stress with I need everything to go right before I can relax. Deep breath in. I release all blocks to letting go with I need everything to go right before I can relax. And deep breath in. I release all blocks to calm with I need everything to go right before I can relax. And deep breath in and out. Okay, now that we have cleared that out, we are going to do a couple of fill-ups. So we're going to fill up that space with something amazing. Okay, so we do this the same way. Deep breath in. I'm so happy and thankful. My thoughts are just stories my brain tells, and I get to choose which ones I believe. Deep breath in. I'm so happy and thankful. Things don't have to go perfectly for me to feel okay. And deep breath in and out. So this week, remember, pick one situation that's bugging you, something small, nothing huge. Maybe you felt dismissed in a conversation or frustrated about your schedule. Write out the model, the circumstance, thought, feeling, action, and result. See what's really going on beneath the surface and don't rush to fix it. Just notice it. You will be amazed how much lighter things start to feel when you stop fighting your own brain and start understanding it. Because peace doesn't come from changing your circumstances. It comes from changing how you see your circumstances and deciding how you want to think, feel, and act. And that's where your power lives. Thanks for joining me today on Feel Better, Live Better. If you're ready to take the next step, be sure to go to my website, livingthebestyou.com. You'll find free resources and the support you need to accomplish your goals. And if this podcast connects some dots for you, please follow and share with a friend. Until next time, remember, when you feel better, you really do live better.